This module covers the process improvement cycle, a bit about the history of process improvement, and takes a deeper look at the Lean Sigma methodology of process improvement. There's an ongoing debate about where the idea for structured BPI came from. So let's just look at a little bit of history before we actually dive into the process. A well-known example of process improvement is Henry Ford's development of the assembly line, which accelerated the rate at which cars could be produced and significantly reduced production costs. In more recent times, one of the seminal works on business process improvement came from Michael Hammer, an MIT engineer who published a Harvard Business Review article in 1990 about incremental improvement called Re-Engineering Work, Don't Automate, Obliterate. He followed this work with a book co-written with James Champy in 1993 entitled Re-Engineering the Corporation, a Manifesto for Business Revolution. In this work, Hammer espoused ideas about BPI that focused more on radical improvement than incremental changes. Mr. Hammer is still considered the father of this movement by many, and while people were attracted to the idea of business process improvement and corporations certainly saw some improvement, re-engineering in the 90s became synonymous with corporate layoffs, and people began to seek smaller and easier to digest changes that were more palatable. Over time, a number of schools of process improvement developed. You might have heard terms like the Toyota method, Agile, Kaizen, Poka-yoke, and others. The Toyota method is another name for lean process improvement. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Agile is used for both product development and process improvement and is based on short bursts of evolutionary iterative improvement. Kaizen is part of lean and a technique rather than an entire school of thought. Kaizen literally means change for the better, and like Agile, focuses on small, continuous improvements rather than significant, deep changes. Poka-yoke is a process improvement methodology originating in Japan and focuses on mistake-proofing your process. One of the most common frameworks, and the one that serves as the basis for this course, is Lean Sigma. Without going into too much detail, Six Sigma was developed at Motorola by a man named Bill Smith. His work was based on the principles and theories developed by William Denning, who is widely acknowledged as a leading management thinker in the field of processes and quality. Lean refers to the Toyota Production System, or TPS, a philosophy that was developed in the 80s and based on working intelligently and eliminating waste in production processes. TPS focused on continuous improvement and a just-in-time production methodology designed to reduce the amount of inventory needed, thereby reducing costs. Principles from both Lean and Six Sigma have merged and mingled over time to become what is known today as Lean Six Sigma. The BPI world is full of acronyms. Two that you are likely to encounter on your journey with process improvement are Pdac and Demag. Pdac is a process improvement framework attributed to William Edwards Deming. The Deming cycle stands for plan, do, check, act, and is a framework for process improvement. Pdac operates by identifying an opportunity for change, piloting a solution on a small scale, assessing the results of that pilot, and then, depending on whether you were successful or not, applying the changes more broadly or going back to the drawing board. Demag comes from the Lean Sigma School of Process Improvement and is the framework that we will follow for the rest of this presentation. It uses the same general principles, but is a more structured tool and pathway to identify and reduce or eliminate waste in workflow and processes. Let's look at it now. Demag is based on 5 steps: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. This chart shows those 5 steps along with a very brief description of each. Let's take a deeper look at each one in a little more detail and work through a simple process improvement opportunity along the way. Here's our simple example to take us through Demag. Grocery shopping is a regular task we're all familiar with. It's also a process. Going to the store, collecting your items, checking out, bagging, putting the items in your car, returning home, and putting them away. While some of us love grocery shopping, others of us are not such fans. I'm in the latter group. I'd like to find a way to make this weekly task less time-consuming and frustrating. Let's walk through the Demag framework and see if we can find a way to help me improve my grocery shopping process. The first stage of Demag is define. This is all about identifying and scoping the problem you are trying to solve. Process mapping, where the team using a process documents each and every step in the process from start to finish, is a foundational activity to better understand the opportunities for improvement in the, quote, as-is process. There's another separate module in this series which covers this activity in more detail. The statement of benefits sought should be realistic, clearly articulated, and directly related to the process in question. And when you think about team members and stakeholders, be sure to include representatives from the team using the process, teams providing inputs or using the outputs of the process, and any other groups with a direct stake in having the process work smoothly. In our grocery shopping example, the problem is that my weekly shopping trips just take too long. Additionally, I often forget items that I wanted to purchase or my family asked for. The benefit that I am seeking is a shorter grocery shopping experience and fewer forgotten items. Key stakeholders in this process are my family, who is both a provider of inputs and a recipient of outputs of this process. In mapping out my grocery shopping process, beginning at the door of the store and ending back at the door of the store, I realized that I take a list of the meals I intend to make to the store with me, and I try to remember what it was that my family asked for. At the store, I collect the items for each meal, which results in crisscrossing the store multiple times. Along the way, I pick up as many of my family's special requests as I can remember. Now, moving on to the second step in Demag, measure. Capturing your baseline data is important. It helps you determine which metrics are most important in deciding whether your process improvement has worked. Baseline metrics for the overall process can help you confirm that you have correctly identified your areas of opportunity. Remember, as you define your metrics, they should be as objective as possible and as free from being impacted by intervening or alternate causes as possible. In our example, key metrics could be the amount of time between when I enter the store and when I leave, the number of times I return to areas of the store I have already been through, and the number of items I forget to purchase during the trip. In my first trip to the store following my decision to implement a Demag process, my baseline measurement shows that the trip takes me 75 minutes, I crisscrossed the store 9 times, and I forgot my son's granola bars and my husband's peanut butter. During the analyze phase, process improvement teams take a hard look at their baseline metrics and process map to identify all of the areas for improvement and prioritize those areas that will have the most positive impact on the overall process for change. Root cause analysis is conducted to make sure that the real problem is identified so that efforts to fix the issue will yield positive results. A good tool to help accomplish this is the 5 whys system of root cause analysis. This process comes from the Toyota method and is very simple, consisting of repeating the question why when examining a process until you reach a final core root cause. This way of digging in leads to insights about root causes and helps to identify the pieces of the process that most need changing. Using the 5 whys for our example, I target one area of possible improvement, the number of times I walk back and forth across the store. Asking why repeatedly leads me to conclude that the root cause of my chaotic shopping pattern is that my grocery list is poorly organized and not designed for efficient shopping. The conclusion I draw from this analysis is that a way to improve my experience would be to dedicate time to compile a complete list of items I need, including the special requests from my family, and to organize it in the order of the departments in the store. That way, I can proceed straight from start to finish without doubling back for missing items. In all likelihood, the work that you've done on your problem so far has indicated there are several possible areas for improvement in your process. Now, the team will need to prioritize those areas and work on possible solutions. In prioritizing areas of improvement, the team should consider both the effort to make the improvement and the resulting impact the change will have. Focusing on the areas that have both lower effort required and higher return on effort will give the team the most benefit for their work on this process. Be sure to keep in mind the 80-20 rule. 80% of your benefit will come from 20% of your changes. Make sure that your brainstorming efforts follow the usual rules of brainstorming. All solutions get put on the table, no judgment, no voting or selection until all ideas have been explored. Then implement your chosen solution and test to see your results. Repeat this process until everyone is satisfied that you have landed on the best possible solution. In our example, I tried dedicating 15 minutes before I leave for the store to arrange my grocery list by department and ask my family what items they want added to the list. Armed with my new organized list, I hit the grocery store. My shopping goes much more smoothly. I only double back once, and I don't forget a thing. Now that I have identified and implemented a change solution, we can move on to looking at control. During the control stage, the new process is assessed to make sure that it sticks and that people are using it. This is also the time to measure the key metrics again to see if you can see objective changes based on the revisions to the workflow that you have implemented. After everyone has been trained, key stakeholders and other groups have been informed of the new changes, and you've done a few test runs just to be sure the kinks are worked out, you should conduct a post-implementation test of the key metrics. This is important for several reasons. First, it helps you understand if your efforts are yielding objective results. Second, it will serve as a checkpoint to ensure that team members haven't lapsed back into bad habits. And third, if additional refinements or improvements have been made since implementation, they can be captured in the process map. To wrap up our grocery shopping example, the next time I went to the store, I timed my trip door to door just as I did the first time. This time, my shopping trip only took 45 minutes and I didn't forget a single item. I would call this success. We also now keep the grocery shopping list posted on the refrigerator, and anyone who wants a particular item needs to add it to that list or it doesn't get purchased. This helps me to ensure that I don't lapse back into old behaviors of going to the store unprepared. As we have seen, the DMAIC framework provides an easy-to-follow structure for conducting a BPI analysis and implementation. Getting through your first project is the hardest part, but only because this is likely a new way of thinking about workflow for everyone. Also be aware that sometimes people can be change resistant, and making sure that you include those folks who are least able or least likely to embrace the changes that will come about as a result of your process improvement efforts should be included in the team at all stages. This will help them be more accepting of the changes and more likely to become advocates for the work that you are doing with other members of the team. Remember, once you get through this first effort, the results will be well worth it and help to foster a firm culture based on continuous improvement. The next module in this series is an in-depth look at project mapping, one of the key foundation pieces to any successful BPI effort.